So welcome to the Ultimate Offsite channel. Today I am talking to the wonderful Alex. So exciting. So Alex is the founder of Onigo, which is a team building business based here in the UK, which delivers playful experiences for team bonding, team building. He started the business 6 years ago with an intent to really turn traditional team building on its head, and obvious alignment with what we're doing here at the Ultimate Offsite. So I thought, Alex, I will invite you on. We can have a conversation and see where it takes us. So welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's so good to have you. For a little bit of context, Alex and I know each other. We were in a mastermind group together, and I had seen what he was working on and from afar when I was doing something slightly different. And actually, it's so inspiring to see what he's built, what he's created, and the work that he does with teams. I know that you won't say it, Alex, so you've had clients from Disney, Google, HSBC, Adidas, Heineken, huge number of really big organizations. So yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation. Maybe we kick off by you introducing a little bit about yourself and what you are doing at Onigo.
Yeah, sure. No problem, Slow. So as you said, I founded Onigo 6 years ago. I've always had a background in kind of events and experiences, and with a particular passion and experience in collaborative kind of game style experiences that ultimately require collaboration and can't be done on their own, with a kind of end project goal in mind, and with a little bit of stress and a little bit of strain in the right kind of way to feel that sense of accomplishment and achievement and connection at the end of it. And connection is always the kind of a big thing that kind of drives me. It's my purpose in life, is to build meaningful connection. The way that we do that with Onigo is to design, deliver sort of playful experiences that bring colleagues together, build teams, boost happiness, boost joy as well. Kind of a focus for us as a business is to be an activity provider, but we very much a specialist activity provider. So all of our experiences are specifically designed around certain pillars and certain ingredients that we know that when we throw them together creates a really good team connection, team bond, different sides of your colleagues. And we do that through blending kind of popular collaborative puzzle experiences like escape games and crystal mazes and whodunits and things like that. But we do it in our own style. Each of our activities is original content created by our team of phenomenal game writers who come together with me to help design and develop those experiences. And we operate both virtually, in person, outdoors and indoors, depending on clients' needs and their whereabouts and so forth.
Amazing. I love that. Every founder has a story that's brought us to start it. I'm curious as to that connection that drives you and the play. How did it come to be? Why this area in particular?
Yeah, so I think it's a good question. So as a bit of context, I actually started the business on a startup program in London, which was geared specifically around creating businesses from scratch that would be social impact businesses, and specifically around improving mental health and well-being.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately where it comes from for me. Something sort of mental health space is something that has been really important to me, both personally and professionally. So I've experienced my own mental health struggles, lack of connection, loneliness, not feeling a sense of belonging, both with it in the workplace and outside of it, through kind of that and sort of some family history. I think I felt some acute disconnection and loneliness at times in my life, and the pain that creates. And also not just the pain, but also the impact that has upon so many other areas in your life, whether that's your confidence, your self-esteem, how kind you are to others and to yourself, and your confidence and so forth. And my personal belief is that if you feel, the more belonging that you have, the greater well-being and performance that you would have as well. And therefore, that's why when colleagues are more connected and they feel more part of a team and they feel a sense of belonging in the workplace, that everything improves, from well-being to their attention to their performance.
Yeah, 100%. And I've gone through my own kind of mental health challenges, but also even founding the business, that was such a lonely experience, shifting from being part of a team into not being part of a team. And I've also experienced where I've been part of a team where I didn't even feel necessarily there wasn't that connection. And the world of work having changed so much, certainly in the last 3 years, it's even more necessary that those moments when teams do come together, how do you make the most of them? How do you promote that connection? How do you take it beyond just, Gary will get this done, to who is actually Gary and how can we work better together? I love that. So talk to me a little bit about escape rooms, that sort of thing. What does it look like if I am Google, let's say, and I'm saying, Alex, please help me out with a team day. I've got one coming up. What does that then look like? What do I get as Google or as a leader?
Sure. Yeah. So from our side, like our kind of secret sauce as such, or specialism, is all about the activity side of things. I don't believe in one single activity being, the cure to everything. It's not designed around that, but this should be part of either a wider day or 2 days, or more to point, ongoing program within the business. And our aim for one of our activities, they're an hour and a half or so long, so this is not a lengthy experience. But the idea for that is to be able to remove yourself from your day-to-day tasks and jobs and to-do lists and everything else within it, to be able to play and have some fun, and to be able to do that in a collaborative experience where you win together. And through that experience, you will see other sides of your colleagues. You have fun, which is really important. Play is incredibly important. And by the end of that, when you high five at the end of your experience because you've solved the final puzzle and completed it within the time limit or whatever it is, you will feel that a little bit closer to those colleagues. And that those relationships and those feelings will endure beyond that, because you'll always remember, and from what our clients say to us and feedback to us, there's weeks and months beyond that, they still talk about that activity, and they'll go past somebody in the office who was in their team with them, and they'll have that conversation and have that kind of that bond that began there, and then it would grow from there.
Yeah.
In terms of kind of like activities that we use specifically, so let's take an example of an in-person activity. So we come to a venue where it could be your office, it could be an offsite. Classic example would be a company goes to a hotel for a couple of days and they do a series of workshops or meetings or presentations or whatever it might be. And hopefully they will also do some energizing activities and so forth, and some celebration as well. And we would come in and set that up in an indoor space. We would divide the group into teams of 4 to 6 people per team, which is kind of the optimum group size for the kind of magic to happen as such. And then each team would have a physical kit as such upon their table. And if we take like our pop-up escape game challenge as an example, it's a spy themed escape game. It's dressed up in something that's a fun theme and relatable. There's a locked briefcase on the table. There's some weird codes and bits and bobs around it, and you don't really quite know what's going on. And you have a mission. You have 60 minutes to work your way through this game, which starts by figuring out this information, finding the code to get into the briefcase, finding all sorts of other experiences within that, and puzzles and riddles, etc., and working your way to a conclusion kind of point. And that is ultimately designed to be fun, interactive, physical, picking up things make noises, shine things, discovering things. But equally, underneath all of that, we design all of the puzzles and content of the game to kind of work both sides of the brain. So you've kind of got a creative side of you or a visual side of your brain, and you've also got kind of a more of a process logic, analytical kind of side as well. So each puzzle will be different and work both sides. A classic example would be a visual puzzle where there's a shape that's hidden within something else, and some people in the team just can't see it initially. Someone goes, I can see it. And that's because that's just the way that their brain sort of favors that type of puzzle. And therefore you suddenly bring out different elements and you understand a little bit more about your colleagues and how they operate. Or you get so far on a puzzle and someone needs to come and collaborate and get you a bit further towards it. And you also have your resources, and you have to decide, do you want to divide into a couple of pairs and work things out, or that person's got one thing. And ultimately, it's no different from a work project where you have a goal and you have component parts and you have resources, and you have to work in the most efficient, effective way to be able to get that task done. But it's wrapped up in ultimately a bit of light competition, which team can complete the fastest. Obviously, something that's fun and themed and interactive.
I love that I love that so much. Do you find that there's a certain kind of day that it works? Because you say it forms a really great part of a jigsaw puzzle piece into a wider, whether it's 2 days or a day or half a day. It doesn't just have to sit as a standalone. Do you find that teams have a particular favorite time of day? Is it the end of the day or to start the day or in the middle or just after lunch? Is there a best time to play?
I don't think there's a best time to play. I think the clients typically see this as an afternoon or early evening activity.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's because it's the best time of the day. We're probably a bit predispositioned to kind of work first and play later, because that's kind of how the world has taught us to be. I always enjoy the clients who go, actually, we want to have an icebreaker energizer first thing in the morning. That's great. And we love that. And ultimately, it can work both ways. I would say when clients are coming to us asking for times, the afternoon and early evenings are the most popular times, but that doesn't mean to say that's necessarily the best time to do it. If you want an icebreaker activity where everyone's a little bit timid, everyone's a little bit not sure of themselves, maybe everyone in the room doesn't quite know each other as well, maybe it's a remote first company and you're not quite sure who everybody is, this is a great way to do exactly that and break the ice and kind of move forward. So I'm a big fan of first thing, but sometimes companies see it as a let's reward or celebrate or do something towards the end of the day once we get the heavy stuff done. But I would sometimes question whether it's best to get something like this, get everyone energized before they get into that heavier stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of what I talk about is around kind of energy management. It's not just time management of your day or setting out an agenda, but really being conscious around where do you need the energy to come through? What tools do you have in your arsenal in order to build that? And also being conscious, as you say, who's in the room, how connected are they already? How much do they already know about each other? How much psychological safety is already present? Because games like this can be a really great way of building psychological safety quite quickly and building a connection and lowering the guard. There's a great study about a paperclip game where essentially two different teams are tasked with the same thing, an ideation session, and both teams are tasked with coming up with uses for a paperclip. Have you heard this before?
I think so, but keep going.
So both teams are tasked with coming up with uses for a paperclip. And one team just does that on their own. Individuals come up with things like a necklace or a ring or some pretty standard and traditional uses for the paperclip. Whereas the other team are actually invited to share and think about it before and be a little bit inventive. And then they go into coming up with these ideas. And the creativity that comes out of the second group, where they've had that moment to actually think outside of the box. So one came up with like a screwdriver, just really inventive stuff came out of that second group when they've actually had a chance to do that connection, and that psychological safety had been built, which is exactly what you've not only described, and using it as an icebreaker can do that really, really effectively, particularly if you're doing something around innovation before you get into the more heavy stuff, let's say. And so I love that.
You have to also consider slightly what the group dynamic is, because if, for example, everybody knows everybody pretty well because everybody's in the office 2 or 3 days a week or more, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm on a team with so. That's a different environment than standing there being like, who are these people on my team? I don't know them. Because, for example, you're a remote company or you just don't work with these people at all. You don't even know their names. There's a different dynamic there. So if it's the latter dynamic, that's where taking a time beforehand, you don't need to force it in any way, shape or form, but rather than throwing themselves straight into a game and having to trust each other, because the game involves trusting each other and giving up a bit of control, and we're having to rely on those two in the corner. They're doing that while we're doing that, which is ultimately a trust build on exercise as well, to kind of go, even if it's just over a coffee, just going, oh, so which part of the business are you from? Okay, great. Yeah. And then you go into the game and those bonds, they reinforce and they goes from there. Whereas if you throw everyone in cold and they don't know anyone, it's a less desirable environment to get the most out of that, because you haven't even broken the ice in terms of knowing each other's names or where they fit into your world of that organization. And then once you get to that point, then you're like, okay, great. And John's great, isn't he? He's really interesting. And Jane, she was really smart on that one, and she's a good egg, or whatever it might be because of that experience. And then you can take that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of this comes down, there is a responsibility for the leader to set the context, provide the context. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've been invited to facilitate a workshop or something, and there's been no context. I'm just kind of, well, hello, are you going to introduce me?
Yeah,
does anyone know what we're doing here? And it's been left to me, which is fine, I can do it. But it lands in such a different way if the leader is set up for success in terms of positioning. Hey, we're going to have a bit of fun here, but there's method in the madness. We want to get you to connect in a different way, invite you to get to know each other. And this is even sharing a little bit of their own story and why they think it's important, why they've chosen for you, Alex, to come in, or the Onigo team to come in and do that. Just that little bit at the start can be really powerful at just lifting the cobwebs for an individual, being like, who are you? Why are you here?
Yeah, absolutely. And those events definitely work best compared. I have a time when sometimes I turn up to deliver an event and it's just like, all right, off you go. And you're like, oh, okay, right. No, and no one quite knows why they're there. And you have to kind of do that legwork as well. Also, I think just with anything else across the whole offsite, but this as well, putting some thought into why you're doing this, what you want to get out of it is really, really important. And one of the key examples for our games is, as I've described, every game is played in a team, typically a team of 4 to 6. Now, a client has the option here. They can either choose who's in which team, or they can just go, don't worry, you just sort it out. We allow that as a choice. And depending on the circumstances of that team and how those dynamics are and what they want to get out of it, can be led to doing that. So, for example, it could be a random team because they just want to mix everybody up, and that's okay. But there may well be a really good reason for thinking a bit more about those teams. So, for example, we really want to get the engineering team and the sales team in the same team. They are so different, as an example, often personality-wise, often dynamics-wise. We want them to be able to work together in a team and to see different sides of each other. Or we want to split up our heads of departments so that they're in different teams. Or we want to flatten the hierarchy as much as we can, and we want to have intern and associate level with senior, or whatever it might be. Having a little bit of intention about that process makes for a bigger and better outcome from it, versus, oh, you just sit, because obviously when we stand up to deliver that event, we go, well, we just have a room full of people here. So you're team 1, you're team 2, you're team 3, and that's fine. But just, again, that thought, planning and intention will get a better outcome, as it would do across anything else in the offsite.
Yeah, could not agree with you more. The methodology that POP has, the ultimate offsite methodology, is 3 I's. Starts with, the first I is intention. And within intention, there are kind of 5 W's. And one of those W's is, what are we going to do? Like, okay, right, we're going to do this team building event. Most people start there, but how are we going to get people to come together? Or they'll start with, where are we going to do it? What's the logistics? When are we going to do it? And what are we going to do? Before start, but I say start with why. Why are you coming together? Why now? What is the purpose of bringing these people together at this time? So why before how, and then who before how? Who are the right people to be achieving that objective or be achieving that outcome of what you want it to look like? And how do you be more intentional about that before you go into the how you're going to make it happen in exactly this? Because all of those examples that you just provided around, whether it's mixing the engineering team with the sales team, or they're all built out of, what is that intention? What are you trying to get out of it? Is it just that you want the engineering team to come together and get to know each other better, in which case keeping them together, that makes total sense. But if we want cross-functional working and better collaboration longer term, then completely agree. I'm curious, your business has obviously shifted in the last 3 years, as so many have done, from being online, offline. It was incredible the way that you responded and pivoted, given everyone being virtual. How are you seeing that play out now in terms of in-person versus virtual?
Yeah. So obviously during the pandemic, it was not 100% virtual activities only. And then since sort of the start of 2022, we've obviously come back to it's a sort of cliche phrase, but it's sort of the new normal of whatever it is, which is very different to the previous normal pre-COVID. The long and short of it is obviously, so virtual is, see, the demand for virtual is far less because of the situation while we were in it, but it's not non-existent, and it's not like it's died a death. And virtual plays a role. About 50% of our business is still virtual. We have heritage in virtual because we did a lot of that during COVID and we were known for that. So there's a bit of that, but also ultimately what COVID taught us was that you can do team activities. And when I say team activities, again, it comes back to the intention of what you're trying to do. Team building is something where you want to create bonds and want to test and instill and showcase skills within that. Team activities can also just be fun, like just go for a team social, just have a celebration, reward, incentivize, whatever it might be. So whatever it is that we have learned that you can do that if you are remote. And therefore, in previous times when you would go, if you were a disparate company and you had offices in different cities and around the world, you would either pay a lot of money to get everyone together at the same time. Obviously, there's an environmental side to that as well. Or you would just do something locally with your local team in your local office and go out and do something. And I think what COVID taught us is actually we can do something online that is not necessarily out of because we have to, because we're in COVID, but there's actually something that people do enjoy and that people does have benefits to you. So that's maintained and endured. And actually, ultimately, is it best just to do something with your local team only? Or is it best to do something with the local team, but also let's do something online so we engage the office in New York, or we engage the office in Asia, or wherever it may be. Like, let's do something as well as that so we can keep everybody connected without having to fly anyone anywhere. So that has definitely endured, and we do that. There are also companies that since COVID have become remote first or have become remote only, and there are therefore a virtual marketplace for that. However, I'm a believer in in-person events where you can, and if you could choose between the two, I would choose in-person events, because ultimately, from someone who believes deeply in human connection, I don't see any evidence where human connection isn't more strongly built in person than online. So therefore, I would always choose in person. And lots of companies have reverted back to that, and therefore 50% of our business is now back in person as well. But there's a demand and a need for both. And ultimately, again, it's about the intention, it's about the objectives of a company and what they're trying to achieve. And ultimately doing something online that keeps connections going between remote colleagues and in person, so hybrid kind of events, or between different countries and different cities and different teams is valuable. And it's something that no one even thought to do pre-COVID.
I completely agree. I mean, if you can do it in person, we are human, we are social animals. We are designed to bond. You and I would be bonding more if we were in person over a cup of tea. That doesn't mean to say that we can't through the screen, absolutely. Nor does it mean that it isn't such an incredibly valuable tool with which to utilize in the interim between, if a team only has a budget, to be able to bring their people from across the globe together once a year, as an example. That doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't an opportunity throughout the year, quarterly events, etc., to continue and maintain that connection. Events can be a bump, but actually it doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities. I've so enjoyed this conversation, genuinely. I'm conscious of time and I'm curious, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're like, we gotta have this out before we close?
I think there's kind of a couple of things. I think, as I said, as I've banged on about, the connection and loneliness thing is a really big thing. And I think we maybe haven't touched upon necessarily the fact that the post-COVID, we do live in a more remote world. We do live in a work from home environment more. And the loneliness statistics, I don't believe are particularly good. The last kind of statistics that I looked at, which was sort of end of 2022, was that 72% of global workers experience loneliness every month. So that's kind of a statistic that we're living in. So I would question myself on this one slightly, because I absolutely understand the benefits of working from home. But as a man who doesn't have children, for example, I don't experience the kind of benefits of childcare, but I can relate and empathize with it, and not having to do the commute, etc. But I am very concerned about an expectation, especially amongst the young now, that work from home is just the normal thing, and that the world is sleepwalking into a really unhealthy place, not just from a mental health and loneliness and a sort of position, but also I don't believe it's great for creativity. I don't think it's great for business, being at home all the time and being remote all the time. And it does worry me on that side of things. I certainly find it even myself, like I work on my own quite a lot, but even just being within a collaborative, co-working, entrepreneurial environment with other people doing businesses is so much better for my health and my productivity than being at home. So I think there's that side of things kind of to consider, which means that the offsite is so important, and finding times to get together in person as well. And then I think the only other side to talk about is just, we talked about it a lot, but it's a really great theme for this, which is around intention and objectives. I was on a call before this with someone from the marketing kind of side, and someone may ask me the question, when you don't win the business, why is that? Which is a really good, valid question. And actually, I thought about it quite a lot. We're pitching for an activity against another activity provider, for example. Often the reason we don't get the business isn't budget. They're going to spend the money, they just don't spend it with us. It isn't necessarily sort of the logistics or whatever it might be about the event. But often they've just made a decision that the type of activity they want to do is not our type of activity, which is absolutely fine, but it has to come about the intention. So one of my bugbear is when a client says they want a team building activity and they kind of go, yeah, we want to bond and collaborate. But then they may put a few activities together and present them maybe even to their staff to vote for which one to do.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, yeah, the cocktail making class, we want that. Absolutely, let's do cocktail making. And that's fine. Cocktail making activity is a very popular activity. It's something you can do online, you can do, and it's great fun, but it's not going to bond you as a team. It could be a reward, it could be an incentive, it could be a celebration, fine. But I think it's therefore that intention piece, not just about how your day goes, but actually what activity do we want to do? And if you say, I want to do an activity where we're going to bring different people from across the business together into a team, and we want you to have to work together to collaborate. We want you to walk away with a greater bond with those people, and we want you to learn about those people's business skills. Then you need to be looking at activities which are collaborative and involve solving things and involve understanding to getting to know each other and putting you under a bit of stress and pressure and train and that kind of environment. If you're looking for a celebration and a reward and incentive, then do something different. So I think, it comes down for understanding what your objectives are, and team building, team bonding is a specific type of outcome. And therefore, be careful about the activities that you put forward to that, because going karting isn't team building in my eyes. It's not inclusive as well, which is another factor. And neither is cocktail making, although generally there's mocktail making as well nowadays. But ultimately, that side of things, I think you've just got to be careful about that and understanding what your objective of this activity is and choosing wisely.
My key takeaway from this whole conversation is the phrase, I could not agree with you more, because again and again, drinks come up. Let's go for dinner. The outsourcing of a leader's power by even asking and saying, what of this list do you want to do, when those individuals aren't the ones who are setting the intention and when it doesn't necessarily line up. There is a difference between having a fun activity, which is truly team building, builds the foundation of trust, which is absolutely pivotal for any high-performing team, needs to trust each other. You don't build that necessarily cocktail making. That doesn't mean to say that cocktail making wouldn't be a fun experience to do.
There's a place for both in the work environment, but it's just being clear on your intention.
Being clear on the intention, exactly.
You're tasked with organising that offsite, and you say, right, we want to do a team bonding activity, we want a team collaboration activity, but then only short-lived activities that are going to tick that box. And sometimes giving employees choice on a team building activity is not maybe the way to go for. It might be if they're the right activities, but then you need to explain what this purpose is, rather than that looks fun. Fun is an important element, but ultimately, as I said, that comes down to that planning and the thought that goes into the day. We're only going to shortlist activities where you are going to need to collaborate, and we want you to work in a different kind of way, and then give that choice or make your decision accordingly.
And that point that you make around inclusivity, I think is really key. Think about it around like conscious inclusivity, but also sometimes conscious exclusivity, as in who are the right people for whatever that intention is that you're setting. You know, if it is to bond the sales team with the engineering team, then might it be better for just those teams? Do you necessarily need to be including the rest of the organization?
Yeah.
But again, comes down to this intention. Start with why you're going to do it, and then you can shift to who before you shift into the when, where, what, which is where you can design the agenda and what fits into those boxes. Super valuable. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time. I have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I hope you have too. And I'm sure anyone who's watching will have got a huge amount out of it. Absolutely love what you are creating at Onigo and the experiences and the thought and the care that you bring into them. Also, the fact that they're 90 minutes. I mean, 60 to 90 minutes. What team doesn't have that amount of time to be able to do it? I think is amazing. It's such a brilliant kind of plug and play option as part of wider experiences. So love it.
That's great. It's been great to chat. Really enjoyed the conversation.
And that, my friends, is a wrap. Hope you enjoyed that conversation today. For more insights, tips, tools, tricks on how to unlock the potential both within yourself and within your team, then hit the subscribe button now and you'll be notified. We want to hear your comments too. I'm Chloe Temple, here to help you unlock the offsite advantage at your next team event. See you soon.